Good morning. Today we're going to look at why must a player, whether it's their first tournament or any other tournament, notate their moves during a chess game. When we play a chess game, you'll often see that the players have a little book with them, and while they're making a move and they wait for the opponent to make a move, they write down in this little book which move was made. I can show you an example of such a sheet. There's a side for all the moves that white makes and all the moves that black makes. You write the name of the event that you're playing in, the date, the round that you're playing in, and the board that you're sitting at, as well as the section that you are playing in. A lot of the chess players, as they grow up and as their chess evolve, they like to keep record of their chess development, and they keep these sheets. And then they like to keep track of their development through the sections that they play in, D, E, F, and as they then progress to the B section and the A section. And they like to look back at how did they play when they were still in the D section? What did their games look like? Now they're in the B section. What did their games look like when they were still in the F section? So this is what the notation sheet might look like. Now, normally this is not at the bottom of our notation sheets. This is just an easy notation sheet. You will have to write on your notation sheet. You will have to clearly indicate with your moves who won the game. It's always a good idea that both players sign the notation sheet to indicate that you agree with the outcome of the game. So that if there's a dispute afterwards, that you can show on your notation pad that you both signed the notation pad, that your opponent agreed with the score that you won the game, and that when there is a dispute afterwards, then you both can show your notation books and you can say, but my opponent agreed with the score. We signed our notation books. You also have to go to the front normally and enter your scores on the score result sheet. And both players have to enter it there. And for that, you need your notation to be accurate. Right, let's get back to why we notate. We notate so that you can have an accurate record of how you moved. You need the notation for if after your game, you and your coach, you and your parent, or just you on your own, want to go through your game step by step to see where did I make my mistake if I lost, or if you had a very good game, you might want to analyze that game to see what did my opponent do that I can learn from? What did I do that was really good in my game? Where can I improve in my game? Or where did I actually make a few blunders that I still managed to save the game? So we use a notation to analyze our games afterwards. And yes, there's lots of the little ones that tells me, I don't want to learn from my game. I'm so upset after I lost. But each of these games is a learning opportunity. I always tell the players, you win or you learn. There's no losing in chess. Every lost game is a learning opportunity. There's no better game than chess than to teach our children the skill of gracious losing. So use the opportunity to analyze the games with your children to see where could they have gone a little bit differently in the game. Where could they have approached the move differently? And next time, even if you just analyze the first 6 or 7 moves, next time they can try something else. Right, so before we can notate, We need to know our boards. We need to know what each of these squares are called. So let me share one of my other squares with you. So here you will see these are the squares on the chessboard. Each of the squares have a specific name. You'll see A1, B1, C1. And then if you go all the way up, you'll see that each of them are numbered. And you need to know your chessboard. As you grow older, you'll see that sometimes we play with boards that does not have the numbers on the sides. So you need to be able to remember your board so that you can notate without the assistance of the numbers on the side. Especially when we play with electronic wooden boards, there's no numbers on the side of the chessboard. Then you need to know, I moved my pawn to d4. I moved my bishop to f6 without the assistance of the numbers and the letters on the side. Now let's go back to my chessboard. So for our little ones, when we notate, each of the chess pieces have their own symbol. So I'm going to move my first pawn. When I move a pawn, I indicate it with a small letter, a lowercase letter. And this pawn moved to D. There's my D4. And because it's the pawn, I indicate it with a lowercase d. If I am going to move my queen, it's not their turn now, so I can't move that queen. If I take the knight, for instance, the knight is a capital letter, N. So remember, the pawn you wrote with a lowercase letter. I moved my knight, which is a capital N, and I moved my knight to the square C6. So you need to know your chessboard. C6 is, there is C, and there we have row 6. So you need to know what the letter is that represents each chess piece so that when you notate, you can use the correct notation for each piece on your chessboard. Now you get different notation sheets that sometimes teach our little ones at the start how to indicate the different chess pieces. You don't always have to use a purchased notation book. So for the little ones, it will be good if they can bring their own notation sheet that has the letters written on it or printed on it preferably to show them the different letters just to assist them in the start. For our young chess players, when they start notating, it might be a good idea to print a notation sheet that indicates a notation key on the side. That will tell them the abbreviations for each piece on the side, just to assist them in the beginning. Also to show them the different symbols we use, that when you capture a piece, you write it with an X. When you check a piece, then you write it with a plus. The side that checkmates indicates it with a hash before the move. If white wins, it's indicated with 1-0. If black wins, it's 0-1. And a draw is indicated with half. It is very important that they know how to write the scores so that they don't accidentally write that the opponent won. Then, very special moves is this is how they should indicate if they castled on the king's side. If they castled on the queen's side, it basically looks like three zeros tied together. Okay, these two moves will be more for our older players that will indicate en passant and queen promotion. But for our younger players, it would be a good idea just for the start to have a notation paper that indicates a notation key to assist them as they learn how to notate. We do require our little ones to also notate when they start playing, because as they start taking part in the Junior South African National Championships, the little ones are not required to notate. Where notation becomes very important is when a dispute happens where your child won and the score was written in, and then later the opponent comes and claims that he or she won, and unfortunately that does happen more often than we would like, then the arbiter will say, right, I was not there when this game happened, and the game is now finished. Please bring me your notation sheets so that I can go through the game with you. If both players have their notation ready, the arbiter will play the game according to the notation sheets with the players on the chessboard. And that notation will show the arbiter how the game progressed and how the game finished. However, if a player did not notate, there's no way of proving that you actually won. And the player that then claimed that he or she won, if they have notation that indicates that they won, will be awarded the game. Therefore, it is always important that you have your notation and that your notation must be kept up to date. That means you move your piece with your one hand. With that same hand, you press the clock. And then with that same hand, you write your notation. You cannot move, press your clock, then wait 10 moves and then start notating. You have to write your notation immediately after you've made your move. You also have to notate the moves your opponent makes. You cannot just notate your moves. You have to notate the moves your opponent also makes, so that you have a complete record of how the game progressed and ended. I hope this video helps to explain to new players how and why they have to notate during chess tournaments.